And a good Monday afternoon to you. Welcome on into Lunch with Claibs and Joe, powered by Gray Bar, driven by Munganast St. Louis Acura. I'm Joe Roderick, joined alongside by Mike Claiborne. Claibs back in St. Louis today after your weekend in Kansas City. How you doing?
All is good. It was an interesting weekend in Kansas City. I mean, the first game was very exciting. Second game, not so exciting. But now the Cardinals are still on the road in Cincinnati, who's playing well. They beat Milwaukee yesterday. So this is where it gets interesting as far as the Cardinals are concerned, because I believe the next 21 games in a row, you're going to be playing somebody who's in playoff contention. So there are no White Sox on the schedule. There are no Colorado Rockies on the schedule as we speak, although we finished the season out there. But this is where you're going to really find out who you are.
Yeah, how weird was it yesterday not having anything on a Sunday?
You know, somebody told me this happened once before, but I just don't remember it. I mean, now I'm told next year that we won't have this again because we'll play Kansas City 3-3, and that's more like it. I mean, how could you have a Sunday off the Sunday before, and a lot of places school is about to start?
Not to mention, I talked to somebody this morning. They made the trip out to Kansas City for the weekend, and they said Friday, it was, Friday was a lot of Royals fans, but then on Saturday, it was pretty much split 50-50, a lot more red on Saturday, and then Sunday, no game. So that's a lot of lost revenue if you're Kansas City, city of Kansas City, you got to be a little upset that you lose kind of a day of not only a day of concessions and everything, but the town itself. There's a lot of people making that trip, whether it be 2, 3, 4 hours across the state to come to your stadium and do that. And I get the White Sox Cubs did the same thing. They had their crosstown rivalry this weekend. They played Friday, Saturday. They were off yesterday. I get what they're doing with the interleague play and having 2 away and 2 home, 2 away. But in the long run, you cost a lot. You probably cost your team a lot of money by not having that game on Sunday.
I agree. I think MLB messed up, plain and simple.
The Royals are going to get a lot more revenue doing that. You can take away one of the games they played against the A's this year. You can get rid of. They're going to make a lot more revenue with the Cardinals in town than they would with Oakland.
There's no question about it. I just think they dropped the ball on this. And I've been hard on MLB about the scheduling anyway, especially because of the rain delays and the rain outs that we've had in the makeup games and the multiple doubleheaders. There's got to be a better way. If you're going to have a balanced schedule, it's got to be a better way. Which brings me to this, and this is down the road. We've seen the success that the NHL and certainly the NBA has had as far as having their leagues be in the Olympics. Mm-hmm. I know we have the World Baseball Classic, but the Olympics is probably a bigger stage. Does Major League Baseball shut down the league for a couple of weeks so you can play baseball in the Olympics in 2028 in Los Angeles?
I get that it's a bigger stage. It is a bigger stage for those 2 weeks. But first of all, okay, let's just say the Olympics were in Paris. That Paris had baseball. Does France itself have enough baseball venues to hold Olympic baseball?
Okay, so good question. But I'm talking about 28. And the reason why I bring it up is because I'm not saying baseball has to be that constant sport, okay? Mm-hmm. Just like breakdancing has come and gone. So maybe baseball replaces breakdancing in LA. And then wherever it goes after LA, maybe they have a specialty sport. I don't know. But I think in this situation, as much as baseball needs to recalibrate itself with regard to its image and its likeness, this would be a great opportunity.
And also, too, does it get the same exposure? The World Baseball Classic, that is the only thing going on. That was the only major sport going on in the month of March. I mean, March for the NBA season, you're kind of in that lull of, okay, let's skip ahead, get to the playoffs. Football's over with. Baseball hasn't started yet. So when the World Baseball Classic is taking place in March, that is the show. That is the game in town, to where if baseball is in the Olympics, you're going up against a lot of sports that people only pay attention to once every 4 years. You're going up against track and field, gymnastics, swimming, basketball. You're going up against a lot of stuff, to where I do think it kind of falls down and doesn't it'll get showcased, it'll get played, but you're also competing against a lot of other stuff.
I think they can win that though. I mean, let's face it. If you dig gymnastics, you're going to watch gymnastics. Okay. If you like basketball, you're going to watch basketball. I think it comes down to timing and when you play those games compared to the other events, and obviously it's a prime time opportunity. So now you're guaranteed prime time activities every night, or in that. Remember, you can play in the daytime too. So you
Right.
have a lot of different options here. So it's just a thought. I mean, there's enough countries that could field a baseball team. We've seen
Yeah.
that for a baseball classic. It's just a thought. I mean, we've got 4 years to think about it. But I think Major League Baseball, because their current plan doesn't work as far as global exposure. Uh,
Hmm.
and you get one kick at the can at this. And who knows what the game looks like in 4 years? Maybe with TV deals and players moving and going, coming and going, we may have a whole new set of players we admire and look at that may be from another country, maybe not. So I think overall, it's something you got to look at, and you have to put it on the board now.
The with the Olympics coming and going, 40 gold medals for the U.S. They tied China for the most gold medals. They I think they had overall medals were about 30 or so more than the next country. So USA once again just blew everybody away in total medals and also had the most gold. Some of the things to look back on as far as changing over the next 4 years. Saw Carl Lewis was a little upset with the state of track and field right now and some of the events. There's some of the track events that Team USA has. I know Dr. Rick has been over there and worked a lot with the track and field athletes as far as keeping them healthy and good to go. But with the, I guess, all-star team and the 4x100 is what Carl Lewis really was upset about. And your thoughts on just how the U.S. performed overall in those events?
Well, Carl Lewis acts like that's the first time they've had a botch relay.
Well, I think he's
Okay.
mad that it's happened so many times. I think that was his issue, was that
Well,
it's
you
been
know what?
happening so much that instead of
Well, it
having an
really hasn't.
all-star team of 4 guys,
No, it really hasn't.
specialize it.
Let me stop you right there. This is something I've been following track and field all my life. It happens, but when it happens on that stage, everybody wants to pile on. So my suggestion would be, hey, Carl, considering you haven't been part of this for over 40 years, what are you going to suggest they do? What do you suggest they do with regard to the preparation and the training? I think one of the problems that we have is we have the overall coach, and then each individual has his coach. It's kind of going in the direction of baseball with regard to the hitting gurus and the pitching gurus who are separate from the organization. So I think that has to be something, and maybe they're doing it, that they get together and figure out what, listen, there's only a handful of ways to hand a baton off. All right. So what he's talking about, I think other people would have to say, okay, where's the breakdown at? Is it that they don't practice enough together because they're working on their own individual sports, individual events? Could that be the problem? Because there's not much else you can do. Either you make it or you don't. I mean, he makes it seem like this is an annual event, and it really isn't. And I think that it's easy for people who aren't engaged with the sport anymore to come out of the woodwork and bitch and moan about this and that. That's not how this works. And he should know better.
As far as track and field goes, the 100-meter, the sprint in that we saw in the finals
That
this
was a
year,
joke.
all 8 of the guys under 10 seconds. I'd love to get, and I know when Dr. Rick gets back, when we hopefully we get a chance to talk, I would love to know just how fast he thinks a human can go. Like what is, at what speed are we going to go? Okay, that's it. No one's ever going to be like.
Well,
How far down do we keep going with that?
I think that it depends on. See, Usain Bolt was able to be that fast because of his size. I mean, he
Mhm.
covered a lot of ground for a guy who's 6'4". Okay, he had the other athletic skill that came with it. I think that that's something that you have to find the perfect sprinter, which means now we're looking at guys who are bigger. I didn't really think this 100 was that impressive, and I know the American who came up with COVID all of a sudden when he found
Noah
out he was
Lyles.
when he was going to finish in third place. I thought he was a fringe guy. I thought he was more media hype than
Yeah.
actual flat out guy.
You needed to
Because,
make a star out of somebody. They needed
yeah,
somebody
but you know what?
to.
Here's the thing. If you do your job, the star will find you. He kept trying to make sure the star knew he was in the room. And I think he kind of wore on some people.
Yeah.
I mean, we've seen a lot of athletes over the years really brand themselves, okay? And they do it in a humble, eloquent way where we can kind of all embrace them compared to saying, "Oh no, not again." And some of these people parlay it into other things. For instance, I look at a guy like Johnny Weir. Well, I didn't look at him too long. Anyway, point being, Johnny Weir, he parlayed that situation into a reasonable broadcasting career for the Olympics. Now, what else he does away every 4 years, I don't know, but that's what we know him for.
I'm
Noah
glad you brought
Lyles,
that up because you know what? I enjoy when he teams up with Tara Lipinski because it puts Tara Lipinski on my TV. They had them doing nothing during the
they had a
Summer
little bit
Olympics,
of
did they?
they had
I didn't see him at all.
well, they were in the closing games, the closing ceremonies. They were broadcasting the part of the closing ceremonies.
I need Tara Lipinski on there every 2 years, Summer and Winter Olympics.
Well, you could have had her this year. I mean, you could have watched her this year. I don't know if you could
Right.
ever have her, but bottom line is, they were part of the closing ceremony.
Almost had it. I shout out to Iggy who has friends with Johnny Weir in some capacity, but he almost set it up to where I had an interview with Johnny Weir and Tara Lipinski one year at a Super Bowl, and it would have been in their hotel room, but it never happened. So then it fell through. But I think that was my shot right there, and it just kind of it slipped through my fingers. So you mentioned Noah Lyles.
Yeah, I got a few
Did you
things
see
to say
his
about the
comments towards
Olympics.
Ant?
No,
Did you
I
see
know
his
he took a
comments?
shot. I know he took a shot at him, but I did not
Yes.
see what the comments were. So enlighten
The
me.
comments were so Anthony Edwards. They had Adidas had a shoe release event for Anthony Edwards, and they invited Noah Lyles. I guess Adidas is trying to re-up their contract with Noah Lyles, and his response was, "You want me to do what? You want to invite me to an event for a man who's not even ever been to the NBA Finals and a sport that you don't even care about, and you're giving him a shoe."
Well, see, this show you how stupid he is. He has been to the NBA Finals.
Anthony Edwards?
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm thinking about Anthony Davis.
Yeah, Anthony Edwards,
But
yeah.
but you know what? Here's what I would say to that. Who had heard of Noah Lyles before last year?
Right.
I think if you look at the two, and at last check, Anthony Edwards has at least one TV commercial, if not two. Noah Lyles had one that was running during the Olympics. And, maybe we're splitting hairs here, but I don't think Noah Lyles has that sort of, you know, sort of juice where he can just go after people. Because, really, okay, my thing is, first of all, you didn't win a gold medal. Secondly, you had COVID and you knew it and you still decided to run. So what does that say about you? And now some say, well, maybe he didn't have COVID. He just didn't have an excuse on why he finished in third place. I can tell you why he got finished third place, because they walked him down. He was not, in my opinion, we did not have a very good collection of 100-meter sprinters, okay? These guys' PRs were not really good enough in some cases to qualify. So, I don't know, maybe it was just one of those years. But, I just think Noah Lyles probably, again, looking for space to make sure it was about him. And I don't think people really cared.
Pretty passionate so far about some of the Olympic events from these past 2 weeks, Claibs.
So here's another thing.
I'm letting you roll. I'm letting you roll with it. I'm throwing it out to
here's
you.
Here's why we have to separate athletic events where the Olympics and athletics / entertainment. Here's why. Anytime you have a judge involved, I can't really, and I know it's old school, I can't really embrace it. Because,
Talking
and
about
I know,
breakdancing, yeah.
well, how about the gymnastics? The young lady Jordan Childs, who got shortchanged, and that's a whole nother story. But point being, judges decide your fate. Now, somebody could say, well, what about boxing? Yeah, I can knock you out too. And I can still decide my own fate. Anytime you have a judge involved, you're going to run the risk of having some scrutiny. that ends up being controversy, that ends up really creating credibility for that particular event. Now, you can tell me all you want to tell me about Simone Biles and how she can do flips and everything else, and apparently she does it better than anybody else. But other than the fact that somebody else thought she could do it, and I'm probably sure that many of the people who were judges probably have never done it. So when you have that perfect storm of lack of firsthand experience, along with just the fact of assessing what they're able to do and knowing that how difficult that is, because if they made me a judge, I'd say, hell, give her a 10 on everything because I can't
Yeah.
do any of it. I
It,
admire the skill set. Don't get me wrong. I'm not taking anything away from her athletic ability, but the way we assess how good or how great they are is where I call timeout.
the
Because
Jordan Childs saga right now, controversy right now. She won bronze, and when she won the bronze, initially she did not finish third. The United States team submitted an appeal of her routine, looked at it. She got a point back for it that put her in third place. And then a story came out that they did not do so within the 1 minute time span that you get. Similar to baseball, where you have to indicate that you want to challenge a play in so many seconds or play goes on.
so now they say they
So
have documentation that it happened in 47 seconds.
yeah, so the Olympics have gone to Jordan Childs and said, hey, you need to return your bronze medal. You need to give it to the Romanian gymnast because now she got third. Jordan Childs has refused to do so, and the USAGA has come forth, and now they have video evidence showing that they have turned it in time. So
So you
there
know what they ought
is,
to do?
yeah,
It's very simple. Give them both a bronze medal
exactly
and let's keep it moving.
right.
It's bronze, okay? Even the Romanians have said, hey, she deserves a bronze as well. If they're good with it, then who else? Why should anybody else care?
Yeah,
I mean, because it was evident, again, we're dealing with judges, so we don't know what the judges saw that we didn't see. But if she was a third place recipient and loses it on a technicality, that her opponent acknowledged, hey, you know what? It was good enough. It's just like in the high jump where the American and I can't remember where the other gentleman was from. They both couldn't make a certain height on the bar. So they call it a jump off. Now they could have easily shared the gold medal, but they said, no, let's
yeah,
jump this off. And the American ended up finishing in second place. But you know what? They had a chance to decide their own fate.
yeah,
And this is where I'm really skeptical because if you look at every Olympics, there's always some sort of eyebrow raise when it comes to some judging and scoring. Where you remember when the Russians were involved, we always thought they were on the take and they took care of their own, whether it was diving or gymnastics or whatever the case is. And I don't think that's really changed. It may not have the same political impact that it used to, but I still think you have people who maybe have their own reasons for maybe they see things differently with regard to what the degree of difficulty is.
yeah. And what's you mentioned that with the U.S. high jumper Hamash Kerr, he wasn't interested in doing that. He and Shelby McEwen, I believe, was from the UK. They
No,
kept
Shelby
going.
McEwen was from the US.
Okay, the Hamash Kerr is from the UK.
Yeah.
So and this happens at one of the best moments from the Olympic in the during the Tokyo games was that moment in the high jump. Was it the high jumper from Italy and the high jumper from Qatar that they were sitting there and the judge said, hey, you know what, you guys are still tied, you can keep going, and one said to the other, what happens if we don't? And he said, well, you guys have to agree, you both win a gold. And they immediately hugged each other, and it was one of the viral moments of the Olympics in 2021 when they decided, now we're done competing. We both get to be first place. And yeah, these two just they wanted to out jump each other in that.
Yeah. I mean, so when you can decide your own fate, that's where I'm more all in. And as I was saying earlier, the judging thing, I got an issue with. Um, there are a lot of interesting things that took place in the Olympics. You know, first of all, I think we've kind of determined there are only a handful of cities in the world that can actually put on an Olympics. Okay.
Yeah.
We saw one in Paris. I think LA would do a good job.
They said
Uh,
yesterday, the mayor of LA yesterday said there will be no cars and the Olympics in 2028. That's public transportation is going to get you to every single venue that you go to.
That's fine. I'm good with that. I think the question is, how does that affect? Are you going to have the venues in a certain area where it's more accessible? Because remember, this thing is going to be dealt with throughout the city. So how do people get around? And I'm sure
More
they
than
have a
that, isn't there? There's
logistical.
an event like in Oklahoma, I think.
Yeah. Well, so what? I mean,
I'm just saying,
they had
like,
they
yeah,
had,
it's
a,
gonna
they
be
had an
spread
event
out.
in Tahiti.
Yeah,
The surfing was in Tahiti. So
I
I
know.
mean,
Yeah,
uh, and I got news for you. I think had they thought about it a little bit more, they'd have found another river to swim in. Because that didn't turn out well. They spent over $1.5 billion to try and clean up that river, and they couldn't get it done.
Mm-mm.
So there are going to be some logistical issues that come into play. That's why you can't do this. I had someone say to me, "Man, they ought to do this every year." There's no chance in hell you could pull something like this off in 1 year.
No.
So it's one of those deals that obviously Paris, LA, uh,
Brisbane is in 2032. That's where
yeah,
the next one is after that.
that might be interesting. But when will they do it though? Because Summer Olympics. The Summer Olympics, they're in their winter right now.
July 23rd through August 8th of 2032, Claibs, if you
That
want
ought
to
to
plan
be
ahead.
interesting. Well, I'm going to go to the one in LA, Lord willing. I've been to that one before in
That's
'84.
next on my bucket list is going to an Olympics. So that's
Yeah,
yeah.
it's a very interesting event. Um, there's
But
nothing
you
like let me say this. Other than planning a war, there's nothing more challenging from a planning stage than the Olympics.
so here are the bids right now. Here are the confirmed bids because you're talking about cities, you're talking about countries that can host Olympics. So right now, 2036 is the next Olympics that does not have a home as of yet. The confirmed bids right now are Indonesia, Nusantara, Indonesia, Istanbul, Turkey, India, Santiago, Chile, and those are the only ones that are confirmed that they have actually put bids forth for that.
What's interesting about that, with the exception of maybe two cities, and include countries, the Olympics can bankrupt you.
Yeah.
The one in LA in '84 was one of the first ones that made money. Montreal almost went under. The country of Greece has never recovered. This is an undertaking of epic proportion beyond any imagination when you think about the billions, not millions of dollars, billions of dollars. Where does it come from? And you have to have everybody on board. It's a lot.
Yeah. They've
And
already rejected London, Berlin, Poland, Madrid, and the Ukraine and Mexico for the 2036 Olympics.
all of those, I can understand why all those cities would be denied. And countries rather, and cities. Right. But it's something, man. I mean, I'm one that really looks forward to it. I think the technology that's included with regard to how the games are put on TV, the technology the athletes now use to train. There's a lot of things we'll take away from this that we'll be applying in everyday life as far as how we watch sports. But it was good. I thought NBC did a nice job. I think they've had a lot of practice of this. I remember one year when CBS did it, and it was a disaster. ABC kind of wrote the book on it, and NBC's taking it to another level from a technology standpoint. They tried to include more entertainment. I thought the Tom Cruise scene was interesting because Tom Cruise might be one of the most recognizable people around the world. Okay. And I think that's why he could pull it off compared to somebody we would be accustomed to seeing locally because, Tom Cruise's movies are global. And then the way they transferred it to LA and had the LA flavor with the bands, a lot of thought went into this. So I'll ask you this question. You obviously couldn't pull this together overnight, and you also had to keep a secret. How do you practice all of those things? Just like the closing ceremony, where is there a venue where you can practice this and nobody knows what's going on?
You do it indoors somewhere. You rent out somewhere indoors.
Did you see how big that stadium was?
I know, but but you do it you have to do it in bits and pieces, and you have to hope that these are professionals, that when it all comes together, that they've done this, 1,000 times before in their profession to pull it off.
Well, hold on. How can you? Well, see, that's where I had to check you on that, because no one has done any 1,000 times or 100 times before they got involved. Well, the performers, that's one thing. But doing this, which has never been done before, is what fascinates me on how they could pull all this together and still keep it a secret and be able to find that many entertainers.
Right.
And what are you paying them? I mean, this had to be the most expensive Olympics in the history of the Olympics. And it just keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger.
LA is going to break the bank on whatever. If you think this one was the most expensive, whatever they end up doing in LA is probably going to blow it away.
I'm anxious to see it for a lot of different reasons. It should be very entertaining. All right, one other thing. We had a lot of discussion about the basketball.
Yeah.
LeBron should not have been the MVP. Stephen Curry carried this team. B, a lot of chirping about the fact that Steve Kerr didn't play Tatum a lot.
Right.
You think they're chirping about Tyrese Halliburton in Indianapolis, or the kid from Boston who's what you call his team? You know what? Somebody's going to sit.
Yes.
And the fact is that you had two guys that probably have a little bit more of a resume. Now, granted, Jason Tatum is the best young player under the age of 25 going.
Yep.
All right. But when you have LeBron and Durant and what they're capable of doing, that doesn't mean that Jason Tatum couldn't do it. But you show me a coach in the NBA that plays more than 9 guys in a game on a regular basis, I'll show you a coach that'll be out of work.
Yeah.
Pat
I think
Riley
the reason the Tatum benching got more publicity, I think, is the fact that he just won a championship.
So did White.
NBA. I know, but the fact that he just won it, he's the biggest star on that team. He's one of the highest paid players in the NBA. So he is more of the face of the NBA.
Hey,
but
we got
as
some
you
breaking
mentioned,
news.
What's
breaking news. Jordan Walker just got called up.
I was wondering when that was going to happen. So there you go.
Matt
Jordan
Carpenter
Walker
on the IL, lower back spasms.
We will. So let's take a break.
All right.
Let's come back and talk to that. I do want to get into more NBA stuff or basketball stuff, but let's take a break as we get that news out there to everybody and come back right after this. It's Lunch with Claibs and Joe. We're powered by Gray Bar, driven by Munganass St. Louis Acura.
Let me get this straight. Gray Bar is a distributor?
Yep. For more than 150 years, we supported electrical and datacom projects all over the country.
So you can get me products wherever and whenever I need them?
Yep. Thanks to our expansive national logistics network.
For any industry?
Yep. From construction sites and industrial plants to schools, hospitals, and just about everything in between.
So you could say Gray Bar is much more than a distributor?
Yep, you could say that.
They really do it all.
Yep. When you need a hand powering, connecting, or maintaining your operations, join the thousands of professionals who rely on Gray Bar to help keep them up and running. Yep, Gray Bar does that.
We are back here on Lunch with Claibs and Joe, powered by Gray Bar, driven by Munganass St. Louis Acura. And Claibs, as we just said right before we went to break, the Cardinals have recalled Jordan Walker from Memphis. Matt Carpenter goes on the 10-day IL with a lower back strain. Jordan Walker has been hitting the cover off the baseball down in Memphis, and he has been for about a month plus now. And it was only a matter of time before this happened. You just kind of had to figure out who was what the counter move was going to be to open up that roster spot for him up in St. Louis.
Yeah, you're right. I thought you had a couple of options. You could go the injury route with Matt Carpenter, or you can send Gorman out, who's not been playing well, or you can send Nootbaar out. I thought either one of those two guys were candidates. So your outfield is going to be Scott, Walker, and Pham. Now you have a little bit more of a right-handed punch. And in that ballpark in Cincinnati, it doesn't make a difference whether you're a righty or a lefty. The ball really travels. But I think Walker, they probably for lack of a better term, probably found middle ground with him where they obviously wanted him to change his swing. He's done a little bit differently, not what they like, but he's having better contact. So you got to roll him out there.
So if your outfield, you just said, so the outfield is Pham in left, Victor Scott the third or second in center, and then Jordan Walker in right. So that kind of opens up a lot of questions. First off, so Brendan Donovan takes over second base, which means Gorman's on the bench.
Yeah.
Where does Lars Newpark, who you also just mentioned as a possibility for AAA, now he's also on the bench?
Now, I'm sure they'll find some games where they'll get
Yeah.
the bar in, but this comes down to matchups.
So is Alec Burleson your DH?
I think
then?
Burleson's your DH. Yeah.
Or Goldschmidt's been hitting the ball a little better lately.
Yeah.
I was wondering at some point if it was going to be a case of Burleson moves to first base we'd start seeing that twice a week at some point. But Goldie has picked it up a little bit.
Yeah, he has. And I just think he want to keep his bat in the lineup. I think the question will be two things. How do you get Contreras in the game? And you got to get Pages, keep him behind the plate. That's the other issue. So you have another set of issues to deal with, which I think are positive. Somebody's not going to play, okay? We know it. Somebody's not going to play. But at the end of the day, does that make you a better team? Yeah, it does. Because the current team, as we know it, isn't producing like it needs to. And left-handed pitching has been carving the Cardinals up. So now you have another right-handed bat to go along with the other three in Pham and Goldschmidt and Arenado. So it gives you a chance. Now you have Pages and also Contreras. And Pages has played better. Yeah, I'll tell you something that really should be an eye-opener. When Pedro Pages has the pinch hit for Nolan Gorman, that should tell you all you need to know about where Nolan Gorman is right now in this ball club.
True. That Friday night, with
and it's not a slap to Pages because Pages has really worked hard at being more contact driven. And while I know Gorman had 3 hits the other night, those aren't the 3 hits that they put him in the lineup for.
With this lineup now so Jordan Walker better defensively than Burleson out in right field?
Don't know. Haven't seen enough of him. I will say this. I think Burleson really worked in making himself a credible defender.
Yeah. No, Burleson, he has had a tremendous season for the Cardinals. The Cardinals are not in the spot they are right now in the playoff picture without Alec Burleson on the team, the way that he has been consistent all season long. Say what you will about Mason Wynn being, Mason Wynn Rookie of the Year type numbers that he's put up there and in the conversation for it to move himself up to number 1 in the lineup, has been better defensively. But Alec Burleson's consistency this year has been what has kept the Cardinals in the playoff hunt.
Well, I would agree with you. And I think the one stat I would look at is his strikeout percentage is very low. Okay. I think he's in the top 5 in the National League. But my point is he makes good hard contact. He's made, again, he was batting champion in the AAA. So this isn't like he just fell out of bed and learned how to hit. He's been a hitter everywhere he's been. So his bat is valuable. Brendan Donovan is a low strikeout guy too. So you're going to have to find a way to keep both those guys floating. And you got a couple of positions you can play with on that, along with the DH. So I think this is where Ali and his staff have to be very creative as we go down the stretch. And if I'm Joe fan, I start looking at pitching matchups and who's done what against whom down the stretch. And we have some big games coming up. Obviously, it starts tonight with Cincinnati. But when you face Milwaukee next week, you better have all your ducks lined up because you're not going to get that many cracks at them. So you have to be able to pick up some ground, and you have to do it. You have to do it leading up to and including Milwaukee.
Cardinals tonight will face a lefty, Andrew Abbott, on the mound for the Reds. So I think it makes it real easy tonight with not going with Nootbaar, not going with Gorman in the lineup. You take those two lefties out of the picture, and you're able to load it up with all righties. You could even go with Pages catching tonight with Contreras as the DH. I haven't seen with Sonny Gray on the mound. I don't. You'd know better than I would.
I think you got to Pages. You got to have Pages. Yeah.
That's
that's
all right lineup that you have out there tonight. Then if you're going with Contreras DH and Pages as your catcher tonight, you could go. I guess that would be 1 through 9. Or no, I guess for Scott, your lone lefty in the order tonight.
Yeah.
So what do you go? So where do you place all these guys? You're calling Jordan Walker back up. Give me your lineup then, as of right now, for what the Cardinals lineup looks like for this stretch run.
Well, it depends on who's pitching, first of all, on where I put Burleson. That top of the order, and really 1 through 5 now is starting to really have some legs to it. When you think about when Burleson, Contreras, Arenado's had some better at-bats. Brendan Donovan had 5 hits in his last 2 games. Now you got to figure out who is the 6th, 7th, and 8th guy, in that order. And I think it just depends on whether you're facing a lefty or a righty, or where you hit Arenado and Goldschmidt, and then how you insert Donovan and Gorman. And I think at this point, it's got to be a very good matchup for Gorman for him to be in the lineup. I mean, and the problem with this is you can't even use him as a pinch hitter. Gorman is on a pace to set the all-time record for highest strikeout percentage. He's hovering at 38%, okay, which is unheard of. 38% of the time he steps in, he's going to strike out. And so that's a concern where you can't use him as a pinch hitter. He's not going to make contact. So there's a lot of things that go into this. That's why I'm a little surprised Carp goes on the IL compared to Gorman going down and working on something, or just getting some swings in, because it's not working here.
And when, you have a few weeks, and September call-ups are different now in baseball than they were.
You only get 3.
Yeah, so a few years ago. So they're going to have some roster decisions to make. Riley O'Brien, by the way, called up by the Cardinals. He pitched opening day and has been on the IL since.
Yeah. So here's something else that goes into this. Cardinals have some guys in their bullpen who are reaching a level of most innings ever pitched. Fernandez is one of them. And, you think about Kittredge, who's, this is his first year removed from Tommy John. You have to concern yourself about him. They're going to need some more arms down the stretch. So the question is, who are your 3 that you're going to call up? Who are your 3 that you're going to call up? Along with the fact that Ciani is probably going to come off the IL here fairly soon. Well, let me take that back. He's been on for a little over a week, so he's probably got another 2 to 3 weeks, because the oblique can really be challenging. So you're going to have more people than you need as far as positions are concerned, which is who the Cardinals are. When you think about that, they have a whole lot of guys that can do the same thing at the same position. And it looks like we have another position like that as well, and that might be center field.
As far as the call-ups go, yesterday Steven Matz threw about 60 pitches in his start for AAA.
Yeah.
I think so. He is probably close.
He's going to be on
back.
it. He's going to be on it.
You have McGreevy, who came out and threw 7 innings, allowed 1 run in his major league debut, and then got sent back down the other day. Were you surprised that he wasn't given another chance for that?
No,
is he going to get a start when those 15 days are up?
I don't think so. I mean, I think he'll be, it just depends on who has innings left in their chamber as far as the rotation is concerned. But, I think if you look at the team, I think it's probably McGreevy. Who's the other guy we just mentioned?
O'Brien just got called up. Yeah.
O'Brien Matz will go before O'Brien. O'Brien will be here before Matz.
O'Brien's up right now, isn't he?
He's not he's in Memphis.
Oh, he's in Memphis. Okay.
Yeah, he's in Memphis.
Okay.
So Match because you're paying him, first of all. And if he's pitching reasonably well, then he gives you a left-handed option. So I think it's McGreevy, Matz, and boy, is it Ciani? I mean, you already have a pretty good defender in Scott.
Are you talking about the three that you're calling up then?
Yeah.
And a lot of this depends. I mean, we're talking about something that's happening in 3 weeks. A lot of this depends now on Jordan Walker's, his performance. Yeah. A lot of it depends on what, like you said, you decide to do with a Nolan Gorman or a Lars Nootbaar in those situations too. Because there's a lot of guys that we've seen. We saw Graceffo for, a game?
Yeah.
This year. And there's been a few others on that Memphis shuttle throughout the season that we've seen kind of going back and forth.
But as I told you at the beginning of the year, you're going to have an 18-man pitching staff. Yeah. And now you're seeing why.
Yeah.
And it's going to be some tough decisions have to be made. Okay. And I don't know. That's why they pay Ollie and his staff to do it instead of you and me.
With as far as McGreevy goes, his major league debut and what he did, you see that and you do ask, why not? I mean, what more does he have to do to stay up here and get that second opportunity now to show that wasn't a one-game fluke?
Well, who would you replace him with? Who does he replace?
In the rotation? Palante. You move Palante back to the bullpen.
Okay, so who moves out of the bullpen?
Any of the names that we've mentioned, and any of the guys that are on that Memphis shuttle that have been all season.
So here's the X factor to that. It's an interesting point you make. Palante is more effective against lefties. Okay, so if I move Palante back to the bullpen, I'm bringing him back so he can get out left-handers.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want him being in the right-handed lane. So your bullpen may have a different look. Okay, so you got. Let's play with the bullpen here for a minute. You've got Helsley, Kittredge, Romero. Okay, those are three. So give me your other five that you want to have in the bullpen.
Am I throwing Palante in there? Because you have Libator in the bullpen.
Yeah, so give me your other five.
Libator.
1.
Palante.
2.
John King.
3.
I need a right-handed arm at some point, I guess. If
Armstrong.
I just named 3, so I guess Armstrong is there too. Yeah.
And O'Brien.
That's a lot of lefties that you have out there.
No, Armstrong and O'Brien are right-handed.
So is that a good enough bullpen for you?
I think it would be formidable. But so let me run this by you. Now that we're talking pitching. What do you do when Lance Lynn comes back?
Right.
So who replaces who gets kicked out then? And remember,
where do the Cardinals stand right now as far as confidence with JoJo Romero?
That's a good question. He's had some things that have been nagging him that have really reduced his effectiveness. So again, this is going.
By the way, we also didn't even mention Ryan Fernandez in that too.
Well, I think her Fernandez has hit the wall. That's a guy I might think about putting on the IL. He's reached his limits as far as innings are concerned. So I think that comes into play. And that's why I'm saying there's going to be somebody that's going to get left out. When the music stops, somebody's going to be without a chair.
And I'm sitting here throwing out names that are down in AAA, and I just had to go look up his stats on the year. But a guy like a Zach Thompson, who started the season in the rotation for the Cardinals before getting sent back down. No, nothing that he's done down in Memphis, as I have his stats in front of me.
Well, he's been hurt. He's been hurt a little bit. He's been hurt.
And right now he's just a 2-2 with 55 innings.
When is Memphis season in?
I can tell you that right in about 5 seconds here, but usually that ends towards the end of the middle of September, right?
Okay. So you have about a month, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So you can for about a month. And let's face it, if you haven't figured it out by a month, the week after the minor leagues shuts down, you're either in it or out of it. Well, it won't make a difference on who you want to call up at that point.
Right. Right.
So I think that there's some interesting roster issues. And for you and Rammer with daily cards, this is right up your alley. You have so much to talk about with regard to how this roster is going to shake out.
You know how much he loves the batting order, and adding Jordan Walker into this right now.
So what do you hit Walker?
I'm about to ask him here in a half an hour. That's
so
when,
you got a lefty on the mound. So you're going to front load it with righties.
What tonight should be 1 through. I haven't looked at the splits yet on Andrew Rabbit, but if you are going to go against him, you have the option with this Cardinal lineup right now to go 1 through 8 with righties, if you wanted to.
Do you have another right-handed bat somewhere?
Well, I guess no. You have to go 1 through 7 because you're going to have Donovan at second base. So you're going to have. So you could very easily tonight go Mason Wynn, Brendan Donovan, then go with Wilson Contreras, Paul Goldschmidt, Nolan Arenado, Jordan Walker, or Tommy Pham, Jordan Walker, Pedro Pages,
well,
and
you
then
can drop.
Victor Scott.
You can drop Donovan to the 5 spot.
So you go Contreras 2 tonight?
You can move Contreras or Pham to 2.
Okay.
Because you're looking for some thunder early in the game.
Yeah.
And Donovan has hit well in the 5 spot recently.
Last game for the Memphis Redbirds is September 22nd.
Oh yeah, well, you'll know what you'll know by then who you are.
Yeah.
So you're gonna. I got news for you. That Memphis shell's about to get a whole lot of work.
Looking around at the standings for in baseball right now, as we are coming down the stretch run, and looking at where the Cardinals stand at the moment, 1.5 games back of Atlanta. Atlanta has fallen on really hard times. Atlanta and the Dodgers have both really come back down to earth right now. With that, Dodgers are sitting in the out in the West right now. At one point had a 9-game lead that has evaporated down to 3.5. Diamondbacks and Padres both 3.5 games back of the Dodgers right now in the NL West. You would think the Dodgers would be able to hold on to that.
Really?
What gives you that impression?
I don't think the Dodgers have enough pitching.
They're getting Mookie Betts back here soon.
But Mookie doesn't pitch.
I know he doesn't. Well, I mean, you know what? With everything else that Mookie Betts has done and has shown he can do in every other athletic aspect in his life, I bet if you put him on the mound, he could give you an ERA of about 4.5.
Okay. Well, I don't think that's going to happen. But, here's the thing. I don't think the Braves are going to make it. I think the Mets will catch them. I think the Mets will really put themselves in good position. And, San Diego, we talk about San Diego. Hey, Arizona and San Diego are tied. So this thing is going to really be interesting down the stretch as far as wild cards are concerned, because I don't think there's a wild card that's safe right now.
So right now, Arizona and San Diego are both 5.5 games ahead of the Cardinals.
Yeah.
So who are you? I mean, Cardinals have to hope that the Mets and the Braves just beat up on each other enough to.
Yeah, that's got to be. And the Cardinals have 6 against San Diego.
Yeah.
Well, I'm sorry, they have 3 against San Diego here. And so that'll have an impact also.
Yeah.
But again, I don't think Atlanta's going to make it. You got to figure either one of those 3 are going to have 2 of the spots. One's going to win the division, and another one's going to be a wild card. So you have at least 2. So you have maybe 2 other spots that are up for grabs. And maybe the Cardinals are one of them. Maybe it's the Mets. I mean, again, this thing is going to change every week. And so for the Cardinals to do damage, here's how you have to look at it. And I was talking to Ali about this last week. No, somebody asked him the question about, you have X amount of games, what do you have to be at this point? Here's what you have to do. You have to pick up 1 game a week in the standings from this point on. I don't care what you do. I don't care how you look. But at the end of the week, you have to be able to pick up a game on who's in front of you in the standings.
How many games do they have left against the Brewers this year?
Well, we go there one more time, and they come here one more time.
Okay.
So I think it's 6 games left against the Brewers. So you have to walk out of there picking up 4 of the 6 to have a chance. Because if you split with them, then
does
that
nothing.
means
Yeah.
you got to be balls out from that point on.
Even picking up 4 of the 6, I mean,
But here's the thing.
Rammer gets on me a lot when I go into a series saying they need a sweep. He gets on me, and I know it's real hard to do. But honestly, if you want to make a run at them, 5-1 in those 6 games to pick up 4 games, I mean, that's the easiest way to pick up 4 games is going 5-1 against them, and you're not scoreboard watching.
Well, here's a challenge that comes with that. You haven't been able to beat Milwaukee all year.
Right.
You've won once, so you're gonna need some help.
Yeah.
You're gonna need some help. All right,
So,
are we done here?
No, we got to take one more break. When we
All
come
right.
back, just quickly touch on some football news and notes, and we will do just that right here on
All
Lunch with
righty.
Claibs and Joe, powered by Gray Bar, driven by Munganess St. Louis Acura.
Are you ready for a challenging and rewarding career? There are quality jobs in the construction industry.
I got out of college and my career choices were very limited, and this provided me with a plan for the present and the future at the same time.
I actually have a bachelor's degree in psychology, and I was making less than I make as a first-year apprentice painter.
I didn't go to college. I have no college debt. I make more money than the majority of people I know that went to college.
Take your first step towards a rewarding career. Visit stlouispdf.org.
Back here, Lunch with Claibs and Joe, powered by Gray Bar, driven by Munganess St. Louis Acura. And Claibs football has kicked off. Preseason action, early season polls. It's temperatures in the 70s this past weekend. All of the football fields are here upon us right now. Where do you want to start? You want to start NFL? You want to start college?
Well, considering college hasn't played yet, let's talk some NFL. As you know, I'm not the biggest proponent of paying close attention to the preseason because I'm of the belief there's only, for every 53-man roster, there may be 5 legitimate jobs that are actually available. Okay. And those are a lot on the bottom end of the roster. So you are who you are. Your key here is making sure you stay in shape, making sure you stay healthy, and making sure the new people who come into the organization understand you got to hit the ground running if you're a contender. And there are a lot of teams, I think, this year they're going to have a say-so. This is a balanced league right now. When you look at it and you say to yourself, ask yourself the question, who's already out before the season starts? Who's a team
as
that's
far
already
as teams
playing?
that you are looking at and you're saying they have no chance at making the playoffs right now?
Uh-huh. See what I mean?
New England?
I don't know.
First-year head coach. Who's their quarterback this year?
Well, that's a good point you make. When you don't know the guy's quarterback by his first name.
Drake May.
Yeah. And we saw a little bit of him last year. But my point is this. There are a lot of teams right now that feel like they got a shot. You know, and I'll give you a good example. If you listen to some people, they'll tell you Chicago Bears are going to be in the thick of this thing. Okay. You'd asked me that same question last year. I've been saying, guess what? Chicago Bears going to be picking first in the draft. So how do you go from first to worst that quickly? It's happened. Don't get me wrong. It's happened. But I just don't know if it happens to the Bears. Now, with that said, there are a lot of other teams who feel like they're ready to take the next step. You don't think Houston thinks they're going to be better considering how they finished last year? I mean, when you look at some other teams and you say yourself, if you're Charlotte, Carolina, you say, you know what, we can't be worse than what we were last year. Okay. So you have some teams that have made some incremental strides. I think the teams we ought to start taking a look at are teams like Buffalo, who decided they were going to try and reload on the fly. You know, where's this put the Jets now that Aaron Rodgers is allegedly healthy? They have a really good defense. Where are the Colts? Their quarterback is going to be back. So, I mean, there are just so many teams that are going to have their own side story this year. But I think it comes down to being healthy. I mean, what about Pittsburgh? You know, they got a quarterback issue there. And unless they fix that offensive line, I wouldn't care if they brought Bradshaw back. It ain't going to make a difference.
I'm gonna say Raiders are a team that I can look at and say that they're done after before the season starts. Gardner Minshew is there listed as right now their number 1 quarterback.
Journeyman.
Yeah.
I'm kind of looking at the rest of these teams. I would agree with you that the Raiders are going to have a struggle, especially because of the division they're in. What about San Diego? I mean, you know, Their quarterbacks had the foot injury. They got a new coach who's a very feisty guy.
They
Who,
have a
by the
coach-
way,
yeah.
the NCAA just said, "No, you ain't coming back. Yeah, you're done."
How he's in his 60s, right?
Yeah.
So this has to be it for. He'll go with the Chargers. He'll either be real successful with the Chargers, or it'll flop, and another NFL team will pick him up and say,
No,
you know what?
He'll flop, and some network will hire him.
That too, yeah. But then he'll end up coming back and coaching on the sidelines in the NFL anyway. Then too,
Yeah, no,
he's
you're
still
right.
going. Yeah, he either ends his career in San Diego or I guess LA. Then he goes on TV for a bit and comes back one more time. Easy one to say would be the Commanders, but I think you and I
But
saw
they'll be better though.
But you and I saw enough out of Jaden Daniels quarterbacking for LSU to know that that's the kind of quarterback that can lead a team to a 9-8 record on the year and get them into the playoffs as a 7 seed.
I tell you, a team that I'm not sure about is Minnesota. I'm not sure about them. I'm not sure about New Orleans either. J.J. McCarthy. That's one of them.
Yeah.
So I just think there's some teams that be careful for what you wish for. I think it's why this league is garnered the attention that it does, because there's so many sidebar stories that could change, at the flip of a coin.
Mm-hmm.
It could change because of a ACL. I mean, this is not a deep league with regard to team talent because of the salary cap. So you better hope that when you draft, you better make sure that 4th round guy can step in and play, because you don't win with 1st rounders. You win with 2nd and 3rd rounders and 4th rounders and an occasional free agent, because of the 1st rounder, you already expect he's supposed to help.
On to college football quickly here, Claibs. We 2 weeks from Thursday, Mizzou opens their 2024 season against Murray State. They are going to enter the season ranked 11th overall. I will ask it this way. How many losses can Mizzou have to make the college football playoffs?
I think you can get away with 3.
Really?
It depends on who you lose to. Because and here's something that I'm going to predict now. We've seen the last undefeated team. After this year, we've seen the last undefeated team, because these TV networks are going to say to these super conferences, all right, no more playing East Toenail State Wesleyan 2 weekends in a row. We're going to give you a game on the road or at home that's going to fill your stadium. And we're starting to see it early in the season. But I think the way it's set up, these schools are going to have to start playing better competition early. So that means you're going to have a loss. You may have 2, and you may stub your toe in conference. So I think the most you can have is 3, and you better have a quality schedule, though.
The Mizzou starts their season Murray State, Buffalo, and Boston College.
So
they are not started. They do not have one of those games where they're going to fill the stadium.
So you're right. You're right. But I got news for you. That's going to have to change. If you want Missouri to be credible, you're going to have to start playing somebody. And I always have said this. You should be playing somebody that finished in a comparable conference with a comparable record from last year. Okay? It's too easy not to do. And don't give me this bull about, well, we schedule these games so far in advance. Yeah, and you cancel those games as soon as a new coach comes in. Okay? So my point is this. You should be playing. If you finish 3rd in the SEC, in the eastern side or the west, you should be playing a 3rd place team in the Big Ten, or a 3rd place team in the ACC.
Don't go look ahead at who Mizzou has scheduled in future seasons, because I just started doing that right now, Claibs. And they're going to have to. The AD is going to have to make some phone calls to some of these schools and say, hey, we're going to have to cancel that game against you guys.
Well, I'm going to tell you what's going to happen. The networks are going to tell them this is what we need. We're going to put this game together for you, and we'll play it on a neutral site if you need to. Or you're going to go back to border rivalries. Missouri and Kansas State, or Missouri and Kansas.
They got them coming up 25 and 26. They play Kansas at home and home.
Missouri and Iowa. Missouri and Illinois. What's wrong with that?
That's coming back on the schedule here too, 27 and 28.
So
looks like 26, 27, 28. Looks like they have a few games. They'd start up home and away with Illinois starting up in 26.
So that's what I would look at as far as border rivalries or legitimate conference opponents, that are comparable to what you do.
So not UAPB.
No. University of Arkansas Pine Bluff.
That's who it looks like is on their schedule. Claibs, September 5th of 2026.
I won't. No. We can find somebody better.
See if Howard can get
now. You can have.
Game.
Now, here's the thing. I don't have a problem with you having one of those games. They used to call me alumni game. I don't have a problem with that. I might even have a problem with you playing somebody regionally that's not as good. But for you to go out and find Buffalo or Boston College, and that's a home and home, I get that. But all that kind of stuff, we don't. If you really want to be credible, you got to toughen it up.
And that's where a team like Texas this year, who's coming in, I think ranked 3rd overall right now, where you kind of give them a lot of credit to the fact that they are sticking with that Michigan game. They are playing at Michigan in week 2 of the season on September 7th. How easy would it have been for Texas to say, you know what, we're moving to the SEC. We're going to have that SEC schedule. We're going to take that game off.
No, you know what? I'll tell you how easy it would have been if Michigan would have said that with a new coach.
Yeah.
So I think they were stuck with each other. And you know what? The loser won't suffer because of who they lost to.
Not at all. No.
So you can get away with that.
Yeah. A lot coming up, football talk. You and Howard Richards in the weeks to come, and we got to get our picks, our pick'em segment set up. Figure out who we're going to get involved in that this year, as that'll start up here in a few weeks as well. So that'll be coming up here on Claibs Online. Claibs, you are not on this road trip for the in Cincinnati this week. You'll be back on the air for Dodgers and Cardinals this weekend. What else
Ricky
you got planned?
Ricky and I had those games this weekend, and we got another announcement we're going to be making with regard to Huddle Up here fairly soon. So we'll have a lot of things coming your way when it comes to football season, and obviously we'll be wall to wall with baseball. And before you know it, here comes hockey. So we got a lot of things going on.
Sounds good. Rammer and I will be coming up here in a bit with Daily Cards Live. But until then, he is Mike Claiborne. I'm Joe Roderick. This has been another edition of Lunch with Claibs and Joe, powered by Gray Bar, driven by Munganass St. Louis Acura, Munganass Burkhardt Alton Toyota, where Claibs, I think we might be out there next week out in Alton, Illinois at the Toyota dealership. Go and hang out with Jamie. Coming up there. So we will let you know more about that. But until then, that's going to wrap it up for our show today, right here on Claibs Online.
Munganass St. Louis Acura is making room for the 2025 MDX, so that means great deals for you on the 2024 MDX. We have over 100 2024 MDX models in stock, and you get financing as low as 3.9% for up to 60 months. Or you can lease a new MDX for just $559 per month for 36 months. Or get the MDX technology model for just $589 per month for 36 months. Munganass St. Louis Acura, better than ever for you.